Thank you for coming and joining for this special tech talk, which Paul Colligan is giving us today. Paul is a very well-known author, blogger, whatever you call him. He is basically a podcasting, streaming, monetization expert in the industry. He talks at every major conference, and I have had the opportunity to meet him at one of the conferences, and he's been a good friend since. And he took the offer of coming here and talking about monetizing podcasting and streaming online to our group. And he's a fantastic person, and he will tell you a lot more tricks than I can. And he's a great speaker, by the way. I've heard him speaking at many conferences. So please join me in welcoming Paul Colligan.
Thank you, Matt. In 2007, we unplugged the cable television, and we were doing an experiment in my house for an entire year. The only media that was going to come into my house was going to be coming A, over the internet, and B, legally. There's that second part that makes it a little bit more complicated. And the idea was to see, at the time, Xbox was doing television shows. At the time, the Apple TV hadn't been produced yet, but we knew it was coming. I would not have done this experiment had I not known the Apple TV product was coming. Bought a good HD with a VGA jack for an old laptop that would stream stuff over the internet. And so for an entire year, the family would enjoy only what the internet could provide, again, legally. I blogged about it the year of living digitally. Of course, January 1st, I unplugged the cable. My wife says, "So how about that Rose Parade?" And they ain't streaming that yet. And I said, "Well, I want to watch the Rose Parade." So thank you, YouTube. We were able to get some highlights off of YouTube and watch them on the television set, and so that was good. And the things that were interesting, the two biggest surprise of the year of living digitally, I mean, I did it honestly to write off all my toys. It was totally for the sake of just buying a lot of stuff that I could write off as an experiment. But at the end of the year, what happened was really interesting. I ended up saving money. Extended cable plus your monthly TiVo bill is a lot of cash. And when I just bought the shows I wanted, I ended up spending less at the end of the year than I thought I would have. No commercials, no interruptions. I was completely and totally in charge of my media. Absolutely loved it. That was big surprise number one. Biggest surprise number two was we didn't even realize the year was over until about February of this year. My wife goes, "Are we going to get cable back?" I said, "Well, do you want it?" She said, "No, not really. I mean, in case there's an emergency or something, should we get like an antenna?" You know? And so we bought an over-the-air antenna for $30 at CompUSA right before they went out of business, and we're done. We haven't gone back. And it's been really, really interesting. Now, the funny thing was, the best man at my wedding, I was telling him about this grand experiment. I'm like, "Aaron, yes, I'm going in completely and totally high tech. No television now. All media that comes into my house comes over the internet." He says, "Well, we're doing that." "Well, what do you mean? You don't even have you're just like a 486 or something." I said, No. Netflix, dude. We order everything over Netflix. See, he was doing that himself. He was getting all the television. They just watched it when they wanted to, on demand. So the technology was driving geeks like me to an on-demand world. A buddy of mine who just didn't want to pay for cable and liked, again, doing stuff when he wanted to, drove him away from it. The world's changing. And that was last year. So who am I? I'm a new media enthusiast who brought props. Already the Popcorn Hour box. You guys are having a lot of fun with that. I'll show you some more. And I want to pass them around. I'm the CEO of Colligan.com, Inc., TIMDJ. This is my day job. The stuff I'm going to be talking about here is not theory. A lot of people, one day we're going to have this, one day we're going to have this. Everything you're seeing, we have today. I pay the bills doing this stuff, and I enjoy it. I'm a full-time new media maker and trainer. I blog, I podcast, I do video, ebooks, the whole 9 yards. Everything I do gets delivered digitally. Occasionally somebody will print something or burn it to a DVD. Personally, I'm kind of sick of that, and I think the less dead trees and mounds of plastic we ship out, we can, but it's there. I wrote the Business Podcasting Bible. Had a lot of fun with that. The whole concept was a book about podcasting that never mentioned the technology. The entire purpose of the book was the type of thing that the geek would pick up, say, "Yeah, this is right," hand it to the CEO, and the CEO would start to get a vision for what's going on. That was how we wrote it, and the reviews have been interesting. I'm putting all the links and everything I talk about up at paulcolligan.com/Google. We'll also have eventually the YouTube stream and whatnot there, because we're going to hit a lot of websites. So the outline for today, I'm going to talk about a New Media Friday. I'm going to talk about what I did on Friday and how it was entirely a new media experience. I didn't even realize it as I was prepping these slides together. I'm going to tell you the secret of the podcast revolution. I'll give you a clue. Over there's Tim Borkwin, who runs the New Media Expo, which a couple of years ago was the Podcast Expo. It's now the New Media Expo, if that gives you a hint to what the secret of the podcast revolution is. We're going to talk about the technology. It's here. I bought props. I'll let you guys play with it. You're engineers. You like that kind of thing. The numbers are here. This isn't a case of one day we're going to be at X. It is a case of we are here now. And so we're going to take this seriously, and then I'm going to take Q&A from a really intelligent audience. So you guys ready? Is Bucharest ready? Sure. All right, New Media Friday. So I was running a lot of errands on Friday because it's a crazy week. I'm here, and I'm in Vegas at the end of the week on something else. So Friday was my drive around in the car day. Friday was the day where I forgot to sync the stuff that I needed to listen to. So my iPhone, this iPhone here, plugged into an one of the docks, power. I was streaming podcasts over the slowest data network on the planet. The slowest data network known to man, I was streaming podcast content because I hadn't taken the moment to sync it. And once I got home, I put it through the better speakers and whatnot, but about 3/4 of what I got was streamed over Edge through this device. Caught the new Podcast Brothers, caught a couple of different shows, some stuff that I needed to listen to. So I was streaming entirely myself. Now, I have a bunch of students who I teach new media to, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. But this is a device, this is called the PodDeus. This is from a company called Casgle.com. And what the PodDeus is the PodDeus, Cat5 cable, you plug it into your computer system. Each device is completely differently recognized. I can send media content to that device, whatever you hook up to it. There's a USB port for a regular USB player. It also has an iPod dock. And the fun thing about the PodDeus device is like an answering machine. You come home, and if there's a flashing red light, that means there's content waiting for you. You put in your iPod, it puts the new content on your iPod, it charges the iPod for you. No syncing, no nothing. This was started by a couple of guys who actually wanted to let their moms get Chinese television here in the States. And it's a fascinating concept. I built some content. I'm a new media trainer for some of my students, and I shot it to their PodDeus boxes. Some got it on their PodDeus devices, some got it on their iPods, some got it on their iPhones, all through a managed RSS system, which I'll be talking about in a minute. But entirely new media training. I didn't ship CDs. I didn't run to Kinko's and print off and mail a bunch of stuff. Everything was delivered digitally, and some people without even the help of a computer. That night, my wife and I, we watched Ken Burns' Brooklyn Bridge documentary. Who's seen that? It's great. Ken Burns is just amazing. The Brooklyn Bridge is just an amazing accomplishment and it was streamed entirely via the Netflix on-demand service through an old laptop, to our television set. No, it wasn't HD, but I was able to pick the movie I wanted to, and I didn't have to drive over to Blockbuster. Now, the funny thing was, while we were watching Brooklyn Bridge, I just got the Kindle. I don't know if you guys have seen the Kindle yet. But while this was happening, my 8-year-old daughter was reading a Ramona the Pest book on the Kindle. Again, no dead trees. And the one thing that didn't happen Friday night, and this is the room who would appreciate it, Friday night we did not watch Battlestar Galactica, which any good fan should. But the fact of the matter was, I don't have Sci-Fi Channel anymore. Really, that's the only reason I need it. And the next day, it would be available on Amazon Unbox for $1.99, commercial-free, streamed to my television set. So the entire decision was made. Yes, I'm a big fan, and I would like to have watched that night. And we're coming near the mid-season finale and all those geeky things. But the fact of the matter was having it the next day when I wanted to, on my terms. And it was funny, for a long time, I TiVo'd it, and you got the 30-second skip. But still that break, the 30-second skip, that realization, now it's like a movie to me. It flows all the way through, and I get it the next day. A lot of times when I TiVo'd it, I would just watch it the next day anyway. So Friday was entirely new media delivery for me. And it was just something I realized as I was putting together these slides. It really makes for a very cool slide, but I didn't realize this until Saturday when I did the slides. So the secret of the podcast revolution. Podcasting is amazing. I've made good money in podcasting. I'm a big fan of podcasting. The majority of my content gets delivered by podcast. But the fact of the matter is podcasting is merely a single channel for new media delivery. It is a great channel. It is a robust channel. It is a strong channel. It is a channel that lets us do a lot of things, but it is one channel for new media delivery. And what has happened is a lot of people have embraced podcasting as if it were the end-all to things. It's not. It's a single channel for delivery. If you're not streaming the content, you're missing it. If you're not making it available on plastic discs for people who want the plastic discs, you're missing it. If you don't do live events that people can come to and attend, because some people, you got to do the face-to-face thing, you're missing it. Now, it made people excited because there's no license, there's no special tech. Remember in the old days when we paid a lot of money to Real Media? Or heaven forbid, the Microsoft streaming solutions, if you will. Put solutions in quote on that one. We used to have to pay a lot of cash to get media out over the internet. We don't have to anymore. That made it exciting. We leverage the sexiest tech on the planet. I mean, nothing ever will be what the iPod is to us. A hard drive strapped to our hip that we can listen to what we want, when we want, where we want. and to build technology that works with that. You got to wonder the day Steve Jobs woke up and said, there's a whole revolution going on. They're using my product. All they have to do is embrace it and make a lot more money. It kicked us in the pants. We realized that if there's no tech to pay for the streaming anymore, if there's no licensing fees that we have to pay, if we can do this really, really, really cheap, what does that mean to media production? What does that mean to content distribution? What does that mean to creators and makers and that kind of stuff? And we need that kick in the pants again, honestly. I think the podcasting space has got a little bit, we're wondering, people have said, you get the average podcaster in the room and they go, well, what podcasting needs is for more people to understand what RSS is. No, it's not what podcasting needs. What podcasting needs is delivery without the audience having to know what RSS is. If you open up the new Apple TV box, plugs into the wall, plugs into the internet, you don't need a computer for it at all in the new revision, and the only place the word subscribe is on the YouTube channel. The word subscribe is nowhere in the podcast area. They've converted podcasting to completely and totally on demand, and at that point it becomes streaming media, streaming content. So the secret of the podcast revolution was it is a single channel for media delivery. Mastery of the new media revolution is that we master all of these channels. And you don't just have a podcast strategy, you have a podcast strategy, you have a streaming strategy, you have a physical delivery strategy. You have things like the PodDeus box, where you can do things remotely on control. You got to have control of this stuff. We put out a podcast, the entire world gets the same thing at the same time. Well, what if I want to give you something different than you and you something different than you? So the podcasting revolution, it kicked us in the pants. It gave us one channel. It made us not worry so much about the licensing and the technology, but we need to go to phase 2. So the technology is here. We're going to talk about flip cameras and field interview kits. We're going to talk about Kindles and iPhones. We're going to talk about the streamers, which I hear is a big deal in this group. We're going to talk about eLearning, the PodDeus, the popcorn hours. We're going to talk about iUl, PayPal, and PremiumCast.com. And I think you guys will see that it's here, it's arrived, and then we'll take some questions accordingly. Flip cameras and field interview kits. You guys seen the flip camera? This thing is absolutely amazing. Now, do you know the origin of this thing? This started, somebody said, it would be great if we had these, people have the disposable cameras. What if we had disposable video cameras? And then somebody could take like 30 minutes of video, take it into the local drugstore burns a DVD. Well, the thing was, the hackers got a hold of these things, and they were just keeping them, and they were, streaming the stuff out via USB. So they took the internal stuff. It's just a normal jack. So you turn the thing on, if you have batteries. There we go. And you record. Now, all the buttons, you ready for all the buttons? Record on. Hey, everybody. And record off. That's it. That's the entirety of the directions. Now, if you want to delete it, you can go through and view the stuff. You can delete things. And then when you want to pull the stuff off, play into USB port. Tim's got a more recent version of it. Just flash that around. It's NTSC quality. It's an hour full video. You can take the clips as you want. My 5-year-old makes adventures of Barbie movies on this thing, okay? And she edits, and like, Daddy, can we make a DVD and send it to Papa? Grandpa down in Santa Barbara? You bet we can. So we've now got the ability for NTSC quality that my 5-year-old can run. This thing retail $150. If she drops this, fine, not a big deal. Paul, do you want the consumer protection plan on this $150 throwaway product? No, I don't. And so we've got this thing that makes video very, very, very easy to do. Well, Paul, don't we have that on phones? Yes, we have that on the smartphones that the geeks carry. Paul, don't we have that on the digital cameras? Yeah, the digital cameras do it, but it's a little bit different of a chipset. The ability to just grab these clips, and by the way, they have editing software on this thing, Mac, PC, uploads. The new version, they just had a new version that came out. It's slimmer. I think it holds 2 hours of it. Now, yes, it's not HD, but it's $150. Tim brought a complete and total portable recording unit. This is what he does. He's a podcaster. I wanted to get some highlights of this event because it's going to take a couple of weeks to get the YouTube thing out. And I want to go home and brag that I spoke at Google. So, Tim's been recording some stuff with a complete and total portable recording unit. Under $1,000 for this thing that he put together. It's absolutely amazing. So we have field interview capabilities right now. If you go to the new Media Expo in August, which I highly recommend, you're going to see a lot of people running around with, actually they won't have this out. Actually, they might just to show it off because that's what they do. But you're going to see everybody filming everybody else. Very, very easy to do. You're going to see people with their, their mics and their mic flags and their portable recorders and that kind of stuff. This thing here from Edison, this is a gorgeous media recorder, and this has, you can plug an external mic into it, low cuts, microphone gains, the whole 9 yards. A great Roland. This is Roland, the synthesizer guys. This is a great thing. Often you can plug the external mic into that, and if I don't trust the people who are recording it, I will actually take a secondary mic and just keep this in my pocket, and then I get a recording of the event. It has mic gain on it. I tend to get, if it's a different crowd, I tend to get loud and shout and scream and that kind of stuff. This thing does the levels for me automatically. Absolutely amazing what we can do now, and we can take this stuff on the road with us. It's just there's nothing stopping us. Kindles and iPhones. My 8-year-old, we got the Kindle on Friday. My 8-year-old says, what about my books? She's in a Ramona kick right now. We order Ramona, we download Ramona. She finished Ramona's World by Saturday morning. A couple of 100 pages. And then I said, wait a minute, we're going to stop buying books, because at the rate you read books, Daddy could go broke. So we went into the public domain, grabbed Black Beauty. She's about halfway through that now. And we've got on-demand content. And I told my wife, it's funny, tech flows in and out of the house, obviously. You can tell what type of person I am. And she always, well, you hype this up, you hype that up. Kindle shows up, she's like, wow, that's a nice screen. My father came over, and he's, wow, that's a nice screen. And so we've got now not just on-demand audio, on-demand video, but really for all intents and purposes, we have on-demand print. It's very green in nature. I don't know if you realize that, but that thing has a built-in web browser. It has an EVDO connection. It's absolutely amazing what you can do. Funny thing is the #1 top-selling book in the Kindle bookstore. Anybody want to take a guess? Obviously, you can see my slide. It's not Anne Rice. It's not Tom Clancy. It's not The Wizard Boy. Okay, somebody wrote a tutorial on how to use the Kindle to do really, really cool things. They're selling it inside of the Amazon store. That's the #1 product inside the Amazon store. So a new media maker has already gone into the Kindle store and is selling content himself. Now, granted, it's only 99 cents. It's a brilliant marketing move for him, but it's the #1 product in the store right now. I was streaming audio Friday on the Edge network, which I must emphasize is the slowest data network on the planet, okay? And if I was streaming audio over that, a guy named Steve, I don't know if you've heard of him, he made an announcement yesterday about a phone that's supposed to speed things up. If I was streaming over the world's slowest network yesterday, and we got 1 megabit coming very, very soon, July 11th, I hear, what is that going to do for the streaming content over the phone while you're in the car? This whole idea of a PodDeus box, where you have to dock your iPod, or well, we'll talk about the popcorn hour in a minute. This stuff's coming fast. The tech is here. And by the way, pretty much everything I've showed you, the most expensive thing in the room is that Edison. Everything else here is under $200. So the tech is here to do this stuff. I bought a $600 3-chip high-definition camera. And it takes gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. Now, unfortunately, words got out amongst my church and my daughter's ballet group that somebody has the high-definition camera, so guess who gets to film everything? But the fact of the matter is this stuff is available. It's here. So the live streamers. My 3-year-old, you guys heard of Quick.com? Quick.com, unfortunately, I couldn't get to work with the network here, but take a look at it, QIK.com. You can take one of the N-line Nokia phones, and you can open it up, you can take the camera, and you can stream live video. About half a 640 by 480, which math is 320 by whatever. But it's a quick stream. You can take this thing on the road, and you can go to a live event. And not only can I do an interview with you, but the event's live. Anybody who's watching the event live can send questions via text at the website. That stuff streams up. So I can go, oh, so-and-so wants to know X, so-and-so wants to know X, so-and-so wants to know X. A live broadcasting studio in the same phone that you brought with you. This is a 2-year-old demo phone. Okay, imagine what's going to happen with this new, 3G iPod and whatnot. Quick.com, absolutely amazing. My 3-year-old daughter, she's 4 now. Actually, she's 5 now. Why did I put 3? It's been a long year, everybody. She's 5 now. She uses this thing. She takes videos with it. She uses the Quick Cam. She uses the microphone. She's not quite reading the Kindle. She did ask if there's any Dr. Seuss on the Kindle, and I had to say no at this point. The Seuss estate, I guess, does not believe in digital print yet. Ustream.com. I don't know if you're familiar, I'm sorry, Ustream.tv, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but Ustream.tv lets anybody with a webcam set up a television show. And there are shows right now, if you go to Ustream.tv, now, unfortunately, the majority of them are, 16 to 20-year-old girls or geeks typing at their computer, and it's kind of disturbing at times if you think about it. But the technology of Ustream means anybody can broadcast stuff. They did the Mars landing on Ustream.tv. Hillary's speech, Ustream.tv. Really interesting stuff. Any laptop with a webcam can stream. What about the drivers? What about the technology? We figured it out. It's done. It's all done with Adobe Flash. It's a gorgeous little product. Mogulus.com. You could do multiple cameras and multiple locations, all from the same place. And that can get streamed at a Flash player that gets streamed at multiple sites. Let me give you an example of this. I was at an event, at a group called StomperNet, and I was out at Atlanta, and we took the Mogulus technology, we put it on my blog at paulcolligan.com/live. We put it at 6 other blogs just to show off the experiment. And then from the stage at the StomperNet event, I interviewed somebody in Portland who was doing something very, very cool that had to do with the event, and we were broadcasting it live to 6 different blogs, all using the Mogulus system. Absolutely fabulous stuff. It's there, it's now, it's today. All these systems, Quick, Ustream, and Mogulus, all of them archive the stuff. So if you can't attend live, yes, it's scary. There are people sitting around waiting for a tweet to come that Jason Calacanis has met somebody to talk to on the street. But the fact of the matter is, and this is that multiple channel thing, some people consume live. Some people love that stuff. But some people want the archive. Well, all this stuff takes the archive. All this stuff tapes the recording, keeps in the background. And the video quality is pretty good. No, it's not HD yet. Give them a couple of weeks. So the live streamers are there. The technology is ready. And it's a way people are delivering content. So, eLearning, PodDeus, and popcorn hours. So I have a thing, I told you, I make my revenue stream from selling content. I have a group of students called Paul's New Media Inner Circle. And basically, everything I do, I basically have this code with the group. Everything I do gets recorded and gets sent to them. Now, something like this, it's a live event. I'm going to send them to, YouTube.com. They've used it before. But the fact of the matter is, if I do a closed event or something, the deal that I make with the people is I get to record the event. And if I cannot record the event, I will, for this group of people, I will do a secondary recording of it for them. So everything I do over the course of the year, they get sent to them directly. Now, right now, it gets sent, for those who want it, to the PodDeus device, which is being shot around the room. And again, that will run the iPods. That will power up the iPods. That will sync content with the iPods. Now, not only will it put, and I'll do many of the USB-based devices as well. Not only can I put content, not only can I say Frank gets this piece of content, but I can tell if Frank has downloaded the content. Very, very cool. And so I am delivering this stuff to their devices. And the great thing is, I got one guy on an iPod. I got one guy on a Creative Zen. I got one guy on a 16 gig USB stick. I don't care how it gets delivered. I just know that the content is getting delivered to them. I go in through one system, premiumcast.com, which I own. We'll be talking about that in a minute. I go to the system, I distribute the stuff via RSS, and some people, I actually got one guy who gets it on a Microsoft Zune, believe it or not. But hey, I don't care. It gets sent to one place. This PodDeus device is nice. So the popcorn hour, who's got this? Oh, here we go. So this device, I just got this on Friday, so I've not been able to play with this yet. This is a phenomenal device. A price point, the goal is to be $150. And what this is full component out, full audio out, full HDMI. So you've got great connectivity. You can do full HD. It has, you notice in the front, USB for USB connectivity. So instead of buying a TiVo that only has 40 gig on it or whatnot, you can actually use whatever hard drive you want, including memory sticks. There's a BitTorrent client built into it. And each of these devices are machine accessible. They each have their own number. So I can use the Casgo.com system, the same system I'm using to shoot stuff to Podium, and I can send content directly to this box, which gets hooked up to somebody's television set. By the way, that's just the chipset. You can put a hard drive in this bad boy. And then, when the 1 terabyte hard drives go under $100, throw in 1 terabyte hard drive. Full BitTorrent client built into it. I mentioned that. But the fact of the matter is now, instead of sending my New Media Inner Circle content through Casgo to the Podium devices, these other things, I can actually send it right to their television set. Have an email trigger go out that says, by the way, the latest training on X is on your television set. Recorded with, $150 camera or a screen setup or whatever it is that I did. I'll let somebody else put that back together. The intended price can be about $150. I think it's about 160 right now, but the goal is to make it really, really cheap. And it's a great little device. Somebody said they had one or they just bought one. Do you like it?
Yeah, I haven't hooked it up yet.
Okay.
I got it like a few days ago.
Yeah, I got it. Getting ready, I like to bring props to events like this. So, I literally got it, and I wanted to play with it, but I had to leave. So I'm looking forward to going home and playing with it. But it's a great device, and hooking into it through these systems makes for really, really, really interesting stuff. The iUle, PayPal, PremiumCast.com. So iUle.tv. Who has ever seen around Christmas time the silly little videos of a fireplace with the log burning? Whoever's thought, well, that's just silly. I wanted to take it to the next level. If that's silly, let's go high def silly, shall we? So we got a 1.3 gigabyte HD file of an absolutely gorgeous fireplace. We got custom music written for this. And we were going to sell it for charity at a $5, $7, and a $10 point. Now, it's been selling a lot. We got picked up a lot of places. We actually got mentioned in the fake Steve Jobs blog. It's one of our proudest moments. New York Times had a screenshot, a bunch of great stuff. At $5, $7, and $10, the price point. For different versions. We had an iPod version. We had an iPhone version. We had a Zune version. We had with music, without music. We had all your choices. We actually sold one yesterday. A receipt came through. It's like Christmas in June, really, for these people. And the way it worked was iUle.tv, it was the fireplace in your pocket, was the way that we did that together. And we used the PremiumCast system. I own PremiumCast. PremiumCast is, podcasting is one RSS feed for the world. Everybody gets the same exact RSS feed. Well, that's ridiculous. You can't do any tracking that way. You can't do any management that way. You can't do any sales that way. So PremiumCast is a system that lets you do individualized RSS feeds, all from a central database. So you can, people can get sequential content. People can get, paid for content, lock it up. Somebody stops paying, you turn off their feed kind of thing. So we took iUle, we took PayPal as a payment mechanism, and we took PremiumCast.com, and we sold this thing for charity. And I will lean towards the camera here. You can, you get the idea. We sold thousands of this, okay? We sold thousands of this, and this was a 1.3 gigabyte download, so it's the type of thing where only the truest of the geese could pick up this thing. We bought 10% of a school in Nepal. We paid for a couple of cows. We bought books in inner cities. We did a bunch of really, really cool things as a result of this. We also delivered terabytes of bandwidth that people purchased and paid for, thousands. And that was the Real Geek Unit. This year, we're going to have a physical product that you'll be able to buy via DVD. It'll be done, obviously, we'll get into the download options as well, but that DVD process is going to happen on demand. Again, the options will be to go to charity. What's funny is, if you go out to iUle.tv, there are a number of people, and again, all the links are at paulcolligan.com/Google. If you go out to iUle.tv, a number of well-known podcasters, video podcasters, one guy actually spent probably 10 times more on his video response to iUle than we actually spent on iUle. He has himself waiting out by the bus. He has himself in front of a fire eating mincemeat pie and a glass of port. It's absolutely hilarious. We have one guy who got in front of a 60-inch plasma television set, and he called it the iUle Inferno. Slate.com and their video thing, they did the definitive history of the iUle log. They listed that. And so we got a lot of press. It was a lot of fun. And we actually did some good with it. So I'm happy about that as well. So if a guy in Texas can take an HD camera and film his mother's fireplace, attach some custom music to a piano bar owner in Tennessee with funding by PayPal using a system from a guy out in Portland, and thousands can be sold, and we could be buying parts of schools. If we've got $150 cameras that are click and send, if we can stream from a phone or a television set, or stream from a phone or a computer, if we got a $150 box that we can put a terabyte hard drive on, individually address, send content to it. The tech's here. We're not at a point of, well, one day. No, we're here, okay? And so why hasn't this revolution caught on yet? If it's not the tech, it has to be the numbers, right? Maybe the numbers aren't here to support it. You guys want to see some numbers? I'm not going to go to the next slide. You guys want to see some numbers? Yeah, there we go. And the crowd went wild. So we're going to talk about the Edison Report, Edison Arbitron Report. This is my favorite report. It's always funny. you follow, you monitor this stuff, and everybody comes to these things with their own prejudices and their own reasons for these reports. The Edison Arbitron report is my favorite. I think they're very realistic. A lot of the podcasters really don't like this report at all because I think it tells the truth, but some really good things came out of the Edison Arbitron report. There's some additional internet TV reports. We're going to talk about 3 podcasts, geekbrief.tv, The Seventh Son, and Grammar Girl. Grammar Girl is a fascinating story. We'll talk about StopperNet Smarts, a multi-million-dollar launch of a product sold entirely by video online. And we're going to talk about what Oprah has done to our space, because Oprah's done some really, really interesting things to our space. And nothing says numbers like Oprah. So the Edison Report. Podcast consumers. Now what it did was it took the general public and then it took the podcast consumers and did them side by side. So this is podcast consumer information. But people who are willing to consume podcast content, okay, they are comfortable watching television through non-traditional means. People keep saying, well, people aren't going to watch television anything other than television. No. Podcast consumers are interested in watching this stuff through non-traditional means. Now the funny thing is, again, we go back to my Luddite best man who still has a 486 in his house. But the fact of the matter is, the guy watches Battlestar Galactica and 24 and all the good shows on Netflix DVD. He gets this stuff differently anyway. The one channel concept, it's over, it's gone, it's dead. So we found out the podcasters are very willing to do that. We found out that more than 1 in 5 Americans has watched or listened to downloadable media. Okay, more than 20% of Americans has watched or listened to downloadable media. This is Edison Arbitron. Read the numbers. So once it got it defined, it was really funny. They asked how many of you have consumed podcast content. Barely anybody said anything. Then they defined what podcast content was. And, oh, yeah, I did that. And so about 20% of us have done that. Really interesting stuff.
So how do you define the podcast?
I've got a link to it. They have a very specific definition for it. And if you go to paulcolligan.com/Google, that'll take you out there. And you can see how they defined it. A very good definition. It's the one that I'm using now. So I just, it's long and wordy and no fun for a presentation like this.
Does it include YouTube?
No, it was in that presentation, it was downloaded content. So it was not streaming. It was actually downloaded content to a device. Now, maybe a lot of people tend to watch podcast content on their computer. It's got some stats on that. It's still like 82% or something. So a lot of times that's a progressive download, which is a stream. And so, but it was actually downloadable content. So YouTube would not be included in that and some of the other things. Any other questions on that one? Because it's an important one.
It's US only, right?
Yes. 47%.
People on the recording won't be able to.
I'm sorry. The question was US only. What was that US only numbers? Yes. And then the other question was how is podcasting defined? And it was actually physically the downloading of the product. Now, a progressive download was there. When I was speaking of the iPhone earlier and the streaming that I was doing from the iPhone, technically that was a progressive download as well. The MP3 format, the MP4 format makes progressive downloading, which is streaming I don't know if you guys have a technical term for it internally. And I will now remember to repeat all questions because we're not just in this room. 47% of podcast consumers have purchased something online. There's this whole mantra in this space that they're not willing to buy content. Okay, 47% of podcast consumers have purchased content online. About 1 out of every 2. People are willing to buy the content. 82% of them have purchased something online. That's a good metric. If you compare that to the others, it's compared in the report, it's fully downloadable, great, pretty little graphics. And if you think about that, that's very, very impressive. The money is there in the people who are consuming this stuff. And it goes with Paul's just one channel meme. The idea of having your podcast only available via podcast is ridiculous. The idea of having your stream only available as stream is ridiculous. HBO recently, they have a show called In Treatment. And it's an interesting 30-minute show. It's basically reenactments of moments with the shrink. And basically, it's different people going through the treatment process. It's fascinating drama. They released the first 16 episodes as a podcast for free. No commercials, no nothing, because they knew that people would get hooked after about the 16 channels. So if they're willing to purchase content, if they're willing to purchase something, give them stuff this way. Now, should HBO cut the cable and stop delivering things to the televisions of America? No. But expanding out to this channel makes a heck of a lot of sense. And this is part of the marketing message we try to give people is just, yes, there are people who aren't ready for this stuff yet, but those who are, it's green, it's cheap, it's fast, it's profitable, it's to an audience that's willing to spend money. I mean, it's ideal on many, many levels in many, many ways. So that's the Edison Report. Definitely link through to that one. Some additional reports. I just went backwards in time just a little bit to find out what was happening. LA Times, I mean Hollywood, okay? They're becoming just the lowest numbers on the multi-channel dial rather than the last outputs of mass culture. Talking about television. You know, May 26th, LA Times is going, television ain't what it used to be. It doesn't have the power that it used to have. And you know, if that was coming out of any place other than La La Land, you know, it might not be quite as interesting, but that it comes from here, very, very important stuff. You guys might have read it, might have it up in the break room. ABR research a day later. The numbers of viewers who access video via the web quadruple in the next couple of years, reaching at least 1 billion in 2013. Okay, that's a fourth of the planet. Video online. Very, very soon. Ipsos, who I'd never heard of, but it was an interesting quote. Among the 50% of Americans 12 plus whom have ever streamed or downloaded digital files, 1 out of every 5 hours spent watching movies or TV shows is done on a PC. So anybody who consumes this stuff, anybody who has started this process is now taking 20% minimum of their content in front of a PC. This idea that television is the only place we're going to watch video is going away. This idea that the stereo is the only place we're going to listen to music. You know, obviously the iPod really radically changed our views of music, but it's not just the music. It's the content. It's the training. It's a really big world out there, and there's some really fascinating stuff. And to be able to move out of just one delivery mechanism is there. One of the things we're going to do with iUL, you know, last year, everything was digital download. We had a great time with it. This year, we're going to put it on DVD. Why? Because some people will not download a 1.3 gigabyte file, obviously. And so to give them that plastic disc option is going to bring in, you know, considerably bigger revenue streams. So Internet TV reports, it's there, it's there. The numbers are there. Geek Brief TV. Anybody know Geek Brief, Callie? I'm surprised. I called them. What's your average these days? About 350,000 downloads per episode. Okay? 4 shows a week. They're doing more than a lot of cable stations are doing. Husband and wife team out of an apartment in Dallas or someplace in Texas. They're the ones I did the IO project with. 30 months ago, neither one of them owned a video camera. Many episodes have passed the million download mark. Okay? Million downloads. Cable operators' dreams, television shows' dreams, many episodes they've done. And just surprising ones. Certain texts, certain things happen. They're getting ready for the big trip. They're going to outfit an old bus, and they're going to take the technology with them on the road. They're going to do all 50 states. Obviously, Hawaii will not get the bus, but they will take it up to Alaska. And they're going to do new media streaming from the road. They got a contract with Ustream.tv to do a thing once a week from these things. They're doing amazing stuff. And it's a well-done show.
Hey, I'm Callie Lewis. You're watching Geek Brief TV. This is Brief 373, brought to you by Drobo.
You know, and basically they talk about tech, and you know, this is the response to what happened at the, you know, she's obviously a big fan of the Apple. And they're doing great stuff. It's done. It's part of the Mevio network, the Adam Curry, Ron Bloom thing, and they're doing real numbers by themselves. No best boy, no gaps, no, you know, microphone holder dudes, or whatever the technical terms are. I am in Hollywood, I should say more. The Seventh Son, a science fiction novel delivered as an audio podcast. Why? Because the guy couldn't print it, you know, basically. So he starts to deliver his science fiction novels an audio podcast. It starts doing so well that big geek icons, Nathan Fillion, Firefly, and George Romero, obviously from the horror film industry, they show up to do cameos on this thing. It gets so big. About 30,000 listeners, over 1 million downloads. St. Martin's Press, picking it up 2009. Went from podcast to a physical print book. You know, rumor of Hollywood doing a movie of it. There's always rumors of Hollywood doing a movie of it. But the fact of the matter was the guy came from nothing, recorded his book, got the printing job as a result of it. Things are twisting. Things are flipping around. Now, this is my favorite one. This is my favorite story at all, Grammar Girl. Now, this is the typical story. You write the book, right? You write the book, then you get, the extensions of the book, the audio CDs and that kind of stuff, and then you get on Oprah, right? That's the model, right? Let me tell you what happened to Mignon. Mignon launches a show called Grammar Girl, where she talks about grammar. Now, it was an interesting cross stream of everything, because who's interested in grammar? Business people, moms who want to teach their kids who want to learn it. Everybody loves grammar. I guess. I don't love grammar that muchly. I don't know what the proper term is. And so she launches this show where each episode is just an element of grammar. Like when somebody says, how are you doing? Do you say, I'm doing very well, or I'm doing good? What do you say? Grammar Girl will tell you. So Grammar Girl starts doing the show for about 4 months. She gets a book contract, okay? The problem is she gets a call from, and she hasn't written any of the book yet. And Oprah says, will you come on the show? Monday. Now, how did she come on the show? Apparently, Oprah made some grammatical mistakes, and a bunch of people wrote into the show saying, hey, Oprah, you should have Grammar Girl come on to fix your mistakes. So she comes to the code. So she calls her editor, and she says, okay, you know that whole thing where you get the book out, then you go on Oprah? Yeah, slight problem. I'm going to be on Oprah on Monday. What are we going to do? They got a sound editor, took the best of her podcast episodes at the time, edited together an audiobook, got this thing on Audible and in the iTunes audiobook store before Mignon went on Oprah. Now, when she went on Oprah, she did not speak of her podcast, did not speak of her book, did not do anything. Just her appearance on Oprah got her #1 in Audible and iTunes for this little thing. And the book, by the way, this was last March. The book, I think, comes out next month. The dead tree industry is a slow one. I emailed her and I said, hey, I'm going to be speaking to some folks at Google. Can you give me some good numbers? And I just got the text this morning, and that's why this slide isn't necessarily the prettiest, but 1.2 million Nielsen-validated downloads of the Grammar Girl show last month. Okay? She's monetizing. She has Grammar Girl dolls, shirts. She has a shirt, very popular shirt, Talk Grammar to Me. People buy it, okay? And she's going to be going on tour. Hey, economics 101, find a market, fill it. And Mignon has done a just fabulous, fabulous job. The numbers are there. Stomper.net Smarts. An online training organization called StomperNet launches a program called Smarts, social marketing training system, basically is what it was. More than 2,000 copies of a $1,400 product sold in less than a week. Do the math. Okay, more than 2,000 copies of a $1,400 product sold in less than a week. Sold only online via video, via PDF. Amazon S3 is their CDN. Yes, that is millions. No mailing, no phone calls, everything digital. An amazing sale. A great program. We're almost done. We've been Oprah'd. Look what Oprah's doing. 374,000 entries for, you always got to have that token in Google entry standpoint for every slide deck you do. So Oprah podcast, 374,000. Looking at spirituality, she's mentioned 6 times, on the top fold of the spirituality section in iTunes. So seriously, old and new media, side by side. Oprah's delivering in our space is delivering in Oprah's space. The wall platform's dead. Locking up the stuff, DRMing the stuff, just doesn't make sense. Things like that popcorn box are going to absolutely take over. The index of all this stuff is a very valuable index. If I can go to a place and type in, I want to watch this show, what are my options? By the way, that index doesn't exist yet. All this stuff has been happening in the new media space with absolutely no index at all. You can't find this stuff at all. Your best choice may be iTunes, but that's so locked and so walled, it isn't even funny. The index doesn't exist. Do we know anybody who does indexing? Just a thought. We need to get serious about this. My blog follows this industry. Subscribe to it. The New Media Expo is in August. It's in its 4th year. Google has yet to get a booth. Get a booth, please. Start taking this seriously. You met Tim. He's from there. He didn't know I was going to make that pitch, but I'm going to. Promote the benefits, not the tech. It's not about podcasting. It's about on-demand media, okay? If you promote the benefits of what we've got, you know, hey, you can do everything I do. It's going to be delivered right to your television set. The popcorn box is irrelevant. You know, the fact that it was just the best of the Grammar Girl podcast was that CD doesn't matter. Promote the benefits, not the technology. Leverage what your audience is already leveraging with content you already have. And consider indexing this stuff. Again, that indexing term. Nobody's doing it yet. Whoever does that is going to do some pretty fabulous things. Again, all the stuff's at paulcolligan.com/Google, missing slides and content. Room for questions?
Yes.
Questions from here or wherever you guys are? Yeah?
Several times you commented on how you no longer saw ads. Does advertising have a place in this?
The question is, does advertising have a place? Does advertising have a place in this? Advertising absolutely has a place in this. However, the role of advertising in this place is very different than what it used to be. In the old days, we threw things up to a lot of people we hoped something stuck. Seinfeld would have, you know, you'd watch 5 minutes of Seinfeld, there'd be the token commercial for the 18 to 25 male demographic, the token commercial for the 18 to 25 female demographic, token commercial for the 25 to 45 demographic, you know, and you could just tell who each of these aimed for. That's not going to work anymore. People are not going to put up with that anymore. It's gone. It's over. If you send stuff directly to people, you're going to know who they are. If you take a look at what Hulu's doing, that's the NBC Fox thing, and apparently they just signed Comedy Central, at least parts of it. I guess Jon Stewart starts today on there. You know, Hulu can build a very clear database. We love Hulu. It's one of the things we watch on a regular basis, one commercial per break. But the fact of the matter is I buy advertising. And if I know who I'm getting, I'll pay good money for that. It's this, I don't know who I'm getting, therefore I'm kind of sloppy with my cash. So the traditional interruption through everything else, see what sticks advertising, it's dying. It's dying fast. The really tightly demographically targeted stuff is very, very, very powerful. And that gets integrated. This stuff's going to have on demand. You're going to see, I mean, we're already having this. Shows like Ask a Ninja, a very popular video podcast. People don't realize this, but every week the ad inserts change through a very powerful system that just takes whoever bought, you know, the inventory this week. It's done in audio. I do that in all my audio stuff. So if you listen to a show on June 1st and you listen to the archive of the show on July 1st, it's different commercials based on whatever I'm selling to that certain demographic at that time. So yes, definitely has a space, but this idea, and podcasters tend to have this, you know, the Kevin Costner school of marketing, if you build it, they will come, only works in imaginary movies about baseball fields in cornfields in Nebraska or wherever that was. It's not really a good way to build a business plan. So this idea that I'll create content and people come through, Mignon, Grammar Girl, you know what she sells? The Talk Grammar to Me shirts. Why? Because there's a lot of money in Talk Grammar to Me shirts, and you know, a GoDaddy get your own domain ad's just not going to do so well on her show, even though she's tried it. So we have a lot more power to be a lot more creative with what we do, so we're doing it, but this traditional 5 minutes of content, 2 minutes of commercial, it's gone. It's gone. And you're seeing it. I mean, Hulu's doing fabulous with one per. And you know, you don't mind watching a show now. You know, if you take the show and there's one commercial, that's kind of okay. Or you pay the $1.99 to get it without the commercial. And you'll see those options as well. I mean, you're gonna run up a show. Hey, do you want to pay for this or not? Do you want to pay for it? Does the sponsor want to pay for it? You pick. Same content, different channels. It's definitely where it's going. There's just no question. And whoever runs that, you know, and if we know anybody out there who has, you know, targeted ad insertion technologies where consumers can buy markets and decide where they want to have, and, you know, if you know anybody, give them a call, tell them this is a good space to get into. I either bored you silly or answered all the questions.
No, a lot of the devices you're pointing out don't have input capabilities. So, you know, a lot of what Google does is track clicks on their ads in order to improve effectiveness.
Yep.
Is that gone?
Well, 1 out of every 5 hours of television consumption by the demographic who enjoys that, they do it on the computer. So an ad on ABC.com, I was watching Pushing Daisies, and the ad between the commercial breaks said it was for, I think, Princess Cruise Line, and the Princess Cruise Line ad said, for your custom $500 off coupon or something, click here, and we'll talk to you after the show's over with. Very polite, very non-interruptive, but very, very cool. So for that 20% of your audience who's consuming online, you've got full clip capabilities. for a thing like a popcorn box where you can stream stuff over, let them choose how much they like the commercial and start customizing the stuff based on that. You can do input. That's a pretty open architecture, and you're going to see more and more of that. So, no, it's not there yet, and there's going to be a lot of it where you're going to have to know who they are ahead of time. But input in the live is there. I'll tell you, a 3G iPhone with decent battery connectivity when you're stuck in an airport like I was yesterday, I'll watch some shows with some commercials, and I'm bored enough that I might click through. I was stuck in the airport yesterday. I know, all of you are crying.
Take just a moment. Hey, Bucharest, we would be able to hear you. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask?
No questions.
All right. Thank you, Bucharest. I've never talked to Bucharest live before, so I think it's kind of cool.
I had a question. I see this multitude of podcasts as similar to the way retail business was 100 years ago with all these mom and pop shops. And I was wondering if you see consolidation coming in podcast world, where it has the Walmart of podcasts. And if you have two people, one makes the Sunday episode and one makes the Saturday episode, that's more like a newspaper than a podcast, right?
Great question. So the question is, right now, the podcast and the general new media consumption space tends to be very small groups for small audiences. And the question is, whereas that might be interesting now, the money's in the consolidation. And so the question was, will there be like a Walmart of podcasts? Now, there's some organizations who have tried to do that. They failed miserably at this point. What's interesting is to support the infrastructure of NBC, the broadcast studio. You have to be able to sell your show to 1 billion people. But to support the infrastructure of a husband and wife team in an apartment in Texas, you don't have to sell as many shows. So what's going to happen is you're going to see two things. You're going to see a lot of niche. There's some really interesting niche markets out there. There's some really, really interesting niche markets out there. They're going to have niche shows. Why now? Because it can be profitable to do a niche show. But now let's talk the non-niche show. Geeks who love geeky toys. There are a lot of geek podcasts out there. Okay, I think Cowley's got the best numbers. Different people would argue on that. Are those going to consolidate? You bet. Somebody who does the standard evening news, is that going to consolidate? You bet. As a matter of fact, all of the major evening news shows, NBC, CBS, ABC, are all available via podcast now. And you download, it's funny because at 6:30 you can watch the NBC News, or at 6:45 you can download it without commercials. What's really interesting, I don't think I've shared this with anybody, so this is kind of fun. The Dave Ramsey Show, which is a popular radio show, what's really interesting is if you download the Dave Ramsey Show podcast on iTunes, there are no commercials. But if you download the Dave Ramsey podcast on the Zune Podcast Network, there are commercials. So obviously they're getting it from two different feeds, and obviously the Dave Ramsey group is trying out something, and when I get down to the bottom of that, I'll let you know. But so the larger organizations are going to start broadcasting down this stuff. HBO is in this space. Oprah is in this space. The consolidators are in this space. But the consumption, you're seeing a lot of things happening in music right now. You can see Madonna for like, $500 now, in the back of the stadium if you want to. Or you can go to the local club and listen to a band who's really, really good, who you know, and you can hang out with. And we're moving away from the monoculture to a many-culture. And so you're going to have on this device, see, this is the great thing about this Popcorn Hour box. On this device, I can have HBO, I can have NBC, I can have me, I can have, some guy who does a show for 14 people out in Florida. If he keeps producing it, then the barrier to entry is so incredibly low that he's going to keep doing this stuff. Now, can he make money on 14 people? If he can, God bless him. A lot of them haven't. It's really interesting. One of the funniest, I find this incredibly humorous. Nobody else does, but I'm the one on stage. So one of the top formats of podcasting right now isn't porn, isn't geek. One of the top formats of podcasting right now is language, learning language, drive time French, drive time Japanese, and whatnot. So I get these emails from guys who go, I get hundreds of thousands of downloads per episode, and I can't make any money. If you think about it, they're giving away absolutely free of charge what people used to charge for. You know, you're going to call Berlitz and go, well, I'm giving Spanish language lessons for free. Would you like to advertise your paid product on my show? You know, not so much. You know, and this is why we advocate before you podcast, have a plan. Silly, silly, silly. So the niche are going to be there. The niche for making profit. I have shows with very small audiences that I make good money from. And no matter what happens in the space, that audience is going to continue to follow me. Only a couple of dozen people in my new media inner circle right now. That's a good chunk of change. So it's very, very narrowcasting. The technology is there. Now, if narrowcasting the new media inner circle required that I bought, you know, satellite time or, you know, airtime and all the networks and markets that these people had, it never would have happened. So you will see consolidation where consolidation makes economic sense, but the economic realities of what we've got right now do not make consolidation an inevitability. Should get Grammar Girl up here. So, you know, we've got amazing opportunities now. You know, I put there's a company called CDBaby, cdbaby.com. Any band can put their album on CDBaby for $35, and CDBaby will put you in iTunes. I took a speech of a recording I did. I put it on CD. I sent it to CDBaby. I've now got a speech in iTunes. How cool is that? You know, if Paul can get a speech in iTunes, anybody can, trust me. And so now I'm available. My CD is in the world's largest record store. You know, consolidation's consolidation. I don't even know if that's a term. But anyway, you know what I'm saying.
One question. Can you talk about PodTrack and Electronic? How are they helping monetize and are you getting this?
There are a number of organizations. So the promise is a dynamic insertion of ad content on the stream or on the fly, or maybe the content gets changed on a daily basis. So there are a lot of organizations who do that. Conceptually, it's kind of fascinating because you have things like, you have general interest events. You know, when Spider-Man 4 launches, every piece of media on the planet could hold a Spider-Man 4 badge on it. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's a place where the Spider-Man 4 ad could go, would be on that Japanese learning language podcast, because, you know, everybody wants to watch Spider-Man. So there are these organizations out there. The concept was they would manage, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of shows with, you know, millions of impressions per week, and then do ad buys and ad sells en masse. And some have done that. Some have done quite well with that. GoDaddy continues to buy ads through these organizations because the audience of the tech podcast tend to buy domain names. They tend to be cheap. GoDaddy provides both, so it does quite well. There are several sources online for, you know, how big these numbers are, and none of them have gone public and that type of thing. The problem is the general, this is Paul's interpretation of the problem, but Paul's interpretation of the problem is that the general conception, the general wrapping for this stuff is that these are consumer content pieces, and they're not. They're very specialized and very niche. You know, if I have 500 brain surgeons and I'm selling brain surgeon technology, and the commission on a brain surgeon technology, you know, pays me $1,000 a pop, you know, I only have to sell one every blue moon to do much, much better than a, you know, traditional ad insert will do. So the en masse numbers, you know, Mignon works with an ad group. Geek Brief, Callie and Neil, they work with Mevio, who does ad sales for them. And so the large en masse stuff, that is there. That is very, very doable. But really the strength of this is in the niche and in the insertion. You know, if there was a company out there who would let me put, you know, say time codes into my podcast content, and let me sell the ads, or let you guys sell or let that other company sell the ads, and you know, let me decide price points and that kind of stuff, I'd absolutely take it in a heartbeat. You know, as the entrepreneur, as the guy who runs this stuff himself, I don't need somebody in the middle selling my ads. I find my audience, I find my ads, and then I build content for it. So, you know, those first two questions weren't there, or else I wouldn't have done it in the first place. So those companies are there. You gotta have really, really big numbers to run that. But if you get an ad insert at 10 CPM, CPM is cost per thousand. You guys know that, you're Google. And you know, you got to sell a lot of thousands to make that happen. And Mignon can make a lot of money with, you know, 1.5 million downloads, but that's 1,000 CPM. So if it was 10 CPM, you know, 1,000, that's $10,000. That's great for somebody, you know, working out of her house, but a large multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company, you know, that's not that interesting. Now, if you provide for me the technology to on-demand sell my stuff when I want, if I could click a button and add an ad across all my shows, oh man, I'd pay good for that. And put it up for bidding, and if somebody wants to pay more than I'm making on it. I have a show that sells a big ticket event. The big ticket event pays me $1,000 commission per purchase. So I don't have to sell many to do very, very well on that podcast. You know,
How do you know? How do they know that it comes from you?
some sort of affiliate tracking. I usually buy, for that big ticket, I buy a domain name specifically for the podcast. And so all clicks that come from the podcast are coming directly from there. I'm doing a project right now, and for downloads, we're putting down at the bottom of the screen, for more information about X, visit blank, and that domain name is only associated with the podcast. And for downloads, we're getting about a 5% click-through. And they say, you know, nobody knows for sure what the downloads are to consumption, but I'm going with 50-50. You know, so even at 50-50, I'm getting a 10% click-through right now. You know, and that's stuff that they actually got to type in. Very, very cool. And we're tracking that across a bunch of different marketers. It's kind of a fun little project. And so, you know, it's there. But yeah, you got to track it differently. You can never do that. I mean, and you guys know that. Again, you're Google. But, you know, you can never do the, you know, where did you hear about us from thing down at the bottom. That doesn't work, you know, unless you give them a big bonus for mentioning that down at the bottom. So I always track domain name. You can buy, there are sites now. I recommend $2tollfree.com. $2 toll-free will sell you a toll-free number for $2 a month plus 3 cents a minute. So some people do that. Some people do specialized email addresses. Some people do offer codes. GoDaddy's doing very well with the offer code system right now. So different shows. Geek Brief will say, you know, use our offer code GB1, that type of thing. I recommend domains because the important thing is, I mean, there's two sides of the internet marketing equation. Again, you're Google, so you know this. But, you know, there's click-through and there's conversion. You know, if I get 25,000 click-throughs and I didn't sell a thing, that's the person I sent them to's problem, not mine. You know, and so I want to have both sides of the equation. So domain names hidden. And, you know, there's this misnomer that there's no good domain names left. There are lots of great domain names left. Not a problem at all. And they're getting dumped. You know, the bubble days when we bought them for 5 years and bought a lot of them, they're getting dumped all the time. So there's more domains coming in every day than we're buying anymore. So very, very doable. Some organizations do, Mevio does and offers things. So like for more information, visit our Mevio offers page, and then they have click-throughs there, that type of thing. But it's easy to find a really decent, well, I mean, big seminar. A podcaster who said, you know, I would never watch a podcast that had a pre-roll. You know, they always talk about the evil of pre-rolls. Well, 3 months later, he had a pre-roll, you know, on his show. Why? Because somebody bought a pre-roll, and he said, wow, you know, I would love to pay a bill. So you know, when I started on the internet, one of the reasons why I love podcasting so much, when I started the internet in '95, the thought of using the web for commercial purposes was also considered obscene. You know, the thought of having a website that sold something was considered morally reprehensible. You know, and back then, I didn't know what to do about that. I do know what to do about that now. You know, if in '95 I had the gumption to say, no, guys, trust me, this is where it's going. You know, if I knew that then, I know that now. So yes, there is a vocal community who believes that the insertion of ads is morally reprehensible, but the real number shows, Mignon Shows has ads. And she got on Oprah. Those are the ones that I'm following. Geekbrief.tv has ads, and they're doing the real numbers to pay the bills. My shows have ads, and we're paying the bills. You know, yeah, I won't go any further, but you know, but it's a small, tiny percentage of people who are getting a really bad rep for this wonderfully amazing technology. People don't mind paying for content. That's why we did iYule. You know, you could get the Yule log, okay, on pretty much any PBS station anywhere in the country, many times in HD. We sold thousands of these things to geeks who usually scream up and down that they would never pay for content. You'll pay for content that you want. You'll pay for content that you find interesting. Some bought it because of the charity angle, but a lot didn't. You know, a lot of people just bought it because they wanted to have a fireplace on their iPod. You know, so we proved, and it was marketed to all the geek web, you know, Leo Laporte, This Week in Tech. They talked about this thing for about 6 minutes on one episode. It was absolutely fabulous. A lot of sales that day. These are the same people who scream up and down, I'll never pay for content. They will, you know, just kind of, you know, wave your hand over here while you sell over here, and it works. Pay no attention to the man behind the mirror.
Do you find there is a difference between, say, iTunes, for instance, gives you, like you're saying, an index, I guess. It somewhat gives you an easy, user-friendly way to search for content. Would people be willing to pay for a podcast, like say it's 50 cents, versus, you know, my grandma searching the web for some podcast on knitting?
People, let's take 3 different paths here. The podcaster who loves podcasting because podcasting is free, okay, will not buy a podcast from iTunes, okay? A marketing person who's trying to figure out what the iPod has done for marketing, who searches in iTunes iPod marketing and sees a $9.99 CD called The 7 Ways the iPod Changed Marketing Forever and What You Need to Do to Survive, that's only $9.99, bam, they buy it. People have. My little recording has been purchased a couple of times, and I haven't marketed it yet. So, you know, the person who is obsessed with the technology of not paying, no, they're not going to buy. People are looking for content, buy. There's a whole industry, it's absolutely hilarious. It's, you know, I always in the back of my mind is the entrepreneur, little things I want to get into. There's this whole industry of people who do cover tunes of very popular songs. So let's say Britney Spears is very popular right now. They'll do a cover tune of Britney Spears song, get it in the iTunes directory, just so that sloppy searchers will buy their thing instead of the Britney tunes for it. Hey, you know, it's 66 cents a track. You know, you sell enough of those, and Britney sells enough of those, you know, that you're in an interesting place. So, option number one, the person obsessed with not paying, no, they're not going to pay. But that is such a tiny market of people. The people who go to iTunes who are used to paying, they'll pay. Now, let's step outside iTunes. People go to Google because they know what they want. And Google's going to find it for them. You guys change search. You know, search used to be a game. Now it's actually a tool. If you want something, you search for it, and the stuff that's the best rise at the top. If I want to find out information on X, and up at the top of Google is X, get it on your iPod now for $2, I'm going to do it. I've sold a lot of downloadable media for pay, because people who want that content now. There's a guy, perfect example, Cornelius Fitchner. In project management, did you know that project management now has a certification process to it? Oh my goodness, that just sounds, the project management preparatory exam, okay? Cornelius Fitchner, yeah, let's pull it up. Cornelius actually built the PM Prepcast, okay? It's a 40-hour, and my screen got resized here so you only see part of it, but it is a 40-hour training program for the project management preparatory exam. It is sold completely and totally as a podcast, okay? And so, you know, that's the way you get it, $50, downloads instantly, but if you look at the website, pmprepcast.com, maybe my connection here, he's selling 10 dozen of those a day at $50, audio recorded, you know, 3-4 years ago. and people find it from Google. He buys AdWords, and he tracks those things through to the sale using the Premium Cast service to sell the stuff. Now, it doesn't say, when you get out to the website, it doesn't say, you know, the world's only paid podcast for the project management preparatory community. It says, you know, the fastest, easiest way to ace the project management preparatory exam. And then you read down further, it says, we will deliver it to your iPod right now. So it's the packaging of this stuff that works, and he does very, very well. And he converts. There's just not a lot of people, thank God, you know, looking for their project management preparatory exam right now online. And for those who comes through, he does really well converting. I don't know why we're not connecting, but so that is there, delivered by podcast.
That is my thought. People will pay for convenience. And
yes, absolutely. I mean, it's absolute common sense. You know, why wouldn't they? I mean, they've been doing it for a long time. You know, is there something special about, you know, the convenience of a podcast that, you know, that makes it impossible to pay for it? No. And the thing is, right now, see, I'm a geek, I speak geek, okay? We tend to sometimes associate the value of the product with the technology that produced it. The delivery of a podcast is basically free. If I wanted to stream something in the old days, I had to pay a lot of cash. Rob Glazer did very, very well as a result of my efforts. But now as a podcast, it's essentially, for all sakes and purposes, free. As a result, we kind of wrap our minds that the content that delivered, you know, because it was delivered free, it should be free content. That's not it. We've got to get past that. The technology has now become so ubiquitous that, you know, that cost doesn't matter anymore. You know, people say for IO, didn't you do a lot of bandwidth? Yes, we did a lot of bandwidth. A lot of people do not know how to download a 1.3 gig high definition file. A lot of people try to do that over and over again. We used Amazon S3 as the CDN, and we had, you know, a couple $100 due to Amazon S3. But when you sell thousands of, you know, SKUs at $5, $7, and $10 each, you don't mind paying your Amazon bill. When they sold the StomperNet product, in the Smarts program, I imagine they had a significant Amazon bill. But 2,000 units at $1,400 a pop, you don't mind paying your Amazon bill. And I hear there's another company doing some cloud computing storage stuff that might be able to give Amazon a run for their money, and please do fast. And so yes, they will buy convenience and that stuff. You know, think about it. You know, the Kindle. How many books have I bought already after having it for 3 days because I can get it right now? You know, content, that popcorn box, you know, Amazon Unbox. You guys play with Amazon Unbox? Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. You want a movie right now? Bam, it's yours. 5 seconds later. The Apple TV, great product, except the first night it came out. Everybody rented a movie that night. But other than that, you know, you click the button, you're able to watch it, progressive download, you know, and you're good to go. The problem is not that people won't buy it. The problem is that people don't know why they want to spend $200 on an Apple TV box yet, and that type of thing, because we're not preaching the benefits.
Let me step in here and say we're about to lose Mountain View. Thank you very much for showing up. You'll get auto disconnected shortly, but we can continue to talk here if you want, and sure, Paul will probably follow us to lunch and be available that way also.
Absolutely.
Welcome to continue, but
Okay.
get disconnected.
Goodbye, Bucharest.
Thank you.
Apparently Bucharest is the name of a conference room and not, yes, did not know that. You guys do not look like Bucharestians.
So I wonder if you could talk about the difference between audio and video.
Sure.
Is audio dead?
No. And there's this concept that audio is dead, and it's the most ridiculous concept on the planet. Video is sexier than audio is. Okay? If I went to grab Portland, Oregon, okay, our newspaper's terrible, our business journal's even worse, and Oregon Business Magazine, don't get me started, okay? If I want to catch the Oregon businessman, drive time radio, 1190 KEX, 7 to 8:30. That's what I grab. If I want that demographic, that's what I grab, period. Maybe drive home, but people drive home at different times. You know, that 7 to 8:30 slot is just amazingly valuable for me, because that's how I catch that group. Now, if I want to catch the 22-year-old teenage girl in Portland, Oregon, it's not going to be drive time radio 1190 KEX. You know, there are times when the consumption opportunities for an audio content piece is considerably bigger than the consumption option for a video piece. In the gym, in the car. Yes, there are people who watch videos in the car, but that's a whole other story. You know, and so what it is it's a match of the media format to the consumption whereby which it happens. People are not going to watch, well, people shouldn't be watching video in the background, you know, while they're at work, but the idea of audio coming in the background is there. I have done some experimenting in the video space, but my most profitable stuff comes from audio. Now, some stuff has to be delivered by video, Geek Brief. You know, you can't do a tech gadget review show. You know, okay guys, I'm holding the popcorn box, it's really cool. You know, that's just not going to work. That's why I brought props to show you guys. So there are times, you know when that happens. I've been quoted as saying before, video is sexy, audio is effective. Now, you got to chase the ad dollars. Right now, people don't want to buy audio. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, I find the market, I find the product, and then we build a podcast around it as opposed to vice versa. People are willing to buy video inserts at this point. Now, back in the 80s, you know, we learned something from the 90s. Let's go back to the 80s. Remember back in the 80s, there was this thing called MTV, okay? And it was going to change music forever. You know, we weren't going to buy CDs anymore. We weren't going to buy music anymore. The only thing we were going to buy was music videos. Remember this? You know, and any band that wanted to make it anywhere was going to have a music video. Okay, those days are gone. MTV now is My Sweet 16 and different shows about bratty girls doing bratty things. The music video is dead. Absolutely dead. You know, now, in '85, did it make a lot of sense to make music videos? You know, you bet it did. Does it make sense now? So, you know, you have trends and you have people buy music for the, you know, the experience of plugging in the headphones. You know, it was the Walkman in '85, it's the iPod now. You know, so if you want the most effective way to reach people, it's audio, but if they're not going to consume the audio, where do we go next? But if I look at all the opportunity for my audience to listen to audio, I look at all the opportunity for my audience to listen to video, I look at everybody screaming, running around doing the video thing. Also in production, yes, I can film NTSC, but here's the problem, you know? I got the face for radio, okay? To make me look good, a lot of post-production that we got to do, okay? For audio, I've got that voice, you know? I told my wife one day, I said, you know, I want to get one of those, you know, radio on the air signs so they can know when I'm recording. And she goes, I know when you're recording. Well, how do you know when I'm recording? You have your radio voice on. It starts to come through the walls of the house. You know, so video is not dead. Audio is not dead in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of money right now being spent in video. There is a lot of attention being spent in video. but the long run, it will be audio. Forever. I'll stake my career on that. And just, look at MTV. By the way, all the big radio stations are still around. Now, they're all owned by one person, but that's another story. It's an exciting space we're in. And the opportunity for you guys to provide the tech. I mean, I remember the day AdWords turned on. Oh man, that changed everything. And then the day AdSense turned on, that changed everything again. And the opportunity that Google has to do something in this space is absolutely tremendous. I don't know if you guys know this or not. I paid my way to get here. This is not a paid gig. Okay. You guys have the opportunity to make me a lot of money. So please do. And should we go to lunch?
Yes.